Okay, so last time I talked about Sarai and her name becoming Sarah and how great that was that God renamed her and laid claim to her as his royalty, solidifying his connection to her. So that is just, I think, a beautiful picture saying, no, don't call her Sarai anymore. She's not my princess. She is Princess of Nations. And he's solidifying in this name change that Sarah is the avenue through which he is going to fulfill his covenant. He is doing it through the wife, not the slave that the wife pushed on him, thinking, oh, well, he gave this promise to Abraham. It's got to be him. No, God is solidifying that this is your wife. I am fulfilling my covenant promise through her. And to emphasize that, I am changing her name from Sarai to Sarah. So we've done that. And in the place where he is renaming Abram and Sarai to Abraham and Sarah, this is when God comes and to establish his covenant, he says to Abraham, circumcise everybody. And in this moment, he's changed the name. He said, Sarah's going to fulfill my promise. And Abraham bows down, but then he laughs. He laughs. He laughs at what God is telling him because he's like, my wife is 90 years old. I'm 100. She's not having kids. This is crazy. And he's like, God, I've got Ishmael. I've got Ishmael. Why don't you just fulfill this promise through him? Let's just, you said you're going to do it through Sarah, but I already have this son. Let's do it through the son I already have. And God is saying, no. It says, but God said, this is in chapter 17, verse 19. But God said, no. Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. And Isaac means he laughs. I will confirm my covenant with him as a permanent covenant for his future offspring. So he's saying, I'm going to confirm this covenant with Isaac, and it's going to be for forever. So this is a promise from God. And he's saying, I've heard you about Ishmael. I'm going to take care of him. I'm blessing him too. But I will confirm my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear you this time next year. Okay, so he is making it very clear. Yes, you had Ishmael, but you all went ahead of my plan, and this is not Ishmael's fault. So I will bless him. I will bring great nations from him. But Sarah, your wife is who the covenant is through. And so he's making this very clear. You can laugh all you want. I don't care that she's 90. I am making my covenant through your wife. And this is such a great thing of protection. I mean, we see over and over how God is protecting Sarah. I mean, when she's in, Pharaoh's household and Abraham's getting rich from the fact that his sister, who also happens to be his wife, is in Pharaoh's house. Pimped her out. Got rich, right? Got all this money and flocks and all these things. And so God intervened and it was like, no, he put a plague on the household to rescue Sarah from there. And now he's saying again, no, I'm not taking a substitute. I'm fulfilling my covenant and I am using it through this person you vowed to, your wife. So I just think that's a beautiful picture of how God is honoring the marriage relationship. And we can sin, we can get ahead of God, we can we think, oh God, we're fixing this, we're fulfilling your will, we're fulfilling your promise. But no, God will fulfill his covenant. God will fulfill his promise. And God loves the marriage relationship and he is going to honor it. And that's what he's saying here. And he's kind of like, okay, you're going to name him Isaac. He laughs because I'm going to kind of point out to you, you're laughing at what I can do easily because I am God. And so God doesn't care that Sarah's old. So then in the next chapter in 18, we have the Lord appearing to Abraham, right? So we've got this theophany. God is showing up. He is coming to talk to Abraham, and Abraham sees these strangers, recognizes that they're special, runs to get a calf, tells Sarah, make a bunch of bread. We've got to feed them. And so he serves the Lord and his messenger, and they ask, where's your wife? And he goes, there in the tent, because she's been in the tent preparing, and she's in the tent. She's a woman, she's in the tent. Abraham is eating with the men. And he went and got the calf, and he helped prepare it. So he wasn't just looking at her to do all the work, and then he gets to sit down and eat. He did help work in the kitchen, which is a note I think people should pay attention to. Abraham helped. So the Lord said, I'm going to come back in a year's time, and your wife will have a son. So he's saying it again. Like he said it before when he changed their names and said, do the circumcision, do the representation that you have a covenant with me, and change the names, and said she's going to be with child in a year. And now he's back again, and we don't know how much time has passed, but I'm thinking probably not much, because he said she's in a year, is going to bear you a son, right? Or at least be pregnant. So now he's come back. Where's Sarah? She's in the tent. I'm going to come back in a year, and she's going to have a son. And Sarah's listening in the tent, right? She's not like, okay, I'm tent cooking. She's interested in hearing what they're saying. Like, she wants to hear the conversation. And he's like, I'll come back to you in a year's time, and your wife will have a son. And she's 90 years old. She's 90. And she hears him say this. So now Sarah laughs. And she's like, I'm worn out, and he's old. Like, he's 10 years older than I am. He's 100. I'm 90. We're going to have a kid. We're worn out. That's not happening. And she's like, will I have delight? After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I have delight? So, she's kind of like, really? Is that what we're going to be doing in our old age? We're going to be having fun in the bedroom, and I'm going to have a son? But the Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, can I really have a baby when I'm old? Is anything impossible for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will come back to you, and in about a year, she will have a son. Okay, and Sarah's like, uh-oh, I got caught. I didn't laugh. And God's like, no, you did. You laughed. So first of all, don't try to lie to God when you find humor in the promise that he's giving you, because there will be times where there will be something laid in front of you and you'll be like, I'm too old for that. This is happening. That's happening. There's too much going on in my life. No, God, I don't think. And he'll tell you, nothing is impossible for me. You're going to be able to do this because I am making it possible. And that's a beautiful promise, because God doesn't ask us to do things, one, that are fully within our own ability. If he's truly fulfilling his purpose that is a part of this covenant promise, it's going to be abundantly clear God is doing it. So that's item 1. Item 2, if he's telling you something, you can go to the bank on it. God always fulfills his promises. And thirdly, if you do find it amusing or not possible, don't lie to God about it, because he already knows our heart. And so he's like, no, you laughed. You laughed. You laughed. Now, he's not mad at her. He's not punishing her for it, but he's like, yeah, you laughed. But to us, what seems silly and humorous, because this is not possible in the real, God can just say, sit back and watch, laugh all you want. But next year, when this is true, you're not going to be laughing. You might be delighted in it. You might find joy in it. You might not. But don't laugh, because I can do this. So that is just really cool. Now, her womb is still not open. Why is her womb still not open? It has been 90 years. 90 years. And her worth is often tied up. As a woman, our worth is often tied up in our ability to have children, or our ability to do more, our ability to keep the house, our ability to do this. And I just find that our culture piles more and more that we are supposed to have the ability to do, and that we should do. We should be working outside the home. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. No. we should absolutely be doing exactly what God lays out for us. Now, if that's working outside of the home, perfect. As long as God has laid that out for you, He has laid that out for you. But is it being home and being a wife and mother? Then that is not, by any stretch of the imagination, any less. It's not any less. And God puts us in these times and these seasons for a reason. Back when my husband and I were first married, I started teaching, and I had just earned a teaching degree in one state, and we moved to another state, and that state would not accept the teaching degree, right? And I was alternate route. I had done other things first and then decided, hey, I should be teaching. And so I was going through this process alternate route. And so the next state said, no, we're not going to count that. You're going to have to go through alternate route here. So I jumped through all the hoops, took all the classes, got all the certifications, and worked full-time just shy of 3 years. Well, 3 years tends to be this magic number where you're suddenly considered, okay, you've got 3 years in, now we'll consider you actually certified. But they don't count the years before you're a full-time teacher when I was a full-time sub. Like, I was writing the lesson plans, I was in the classroom, all of that, because the district I was working in had found, oh, she had this certification in another place. She long-term subbed there. We're going to let her long-term sub here, and we're going to back her and be her paperwork support, basically. And so by the time I got all the paperwork completed, that then they could now hire me full-time, I had already been working as a full-time sub for 2.5 years, right? So then just shy of 3 years, and they won't count any of that long-term subbing. Even though full years in the classroom, same classroom, doing the stuff. So, military family, get orders again, we leave. I go to the new state. Nope, we're not going to take it. And we already knew that our time at that state, we knew how long it was going to be. We already knew it's going to be this long. And so I start looking into the process. Well, how long is it going to take here? And by the time and the money we would pay in the new state, I was not going to have enough time there either to have it count in the next state and the next state or wherever else we moved, because you never know, you could be anywhere in the world. And we just said, this is not going to be wise usage of our money and our time to jump through these hoops every time. And furthermore, it's not time yet to start a family, but we think God's going to be doing that pretty soon. We had indications in the process and the steps that God was taking us through, and we're like, there's indications here that we're going to start a family soon. And I was so blessed that my mother was home, and I was just adamant. I was like, it doesn't matter which parent it is, but someone's got to be home with our kids. I don't want a stranger raising them. I don't want somebody that may not be in line with our view of God and our values and all of that. And I just, for me, that was not something that I was at peace with. And I have known families that have had wonderful nannies, babysitters, daycares, all of that. I'm not saying that's out of God's will. I just knew it wasn't in God's will for me. And that was something we had to really pray over and look at too. And so it was like, do we go through this process again of paying all this money where it's not going to be taken the next place or the next place, and just jump through these hoops and keep paying the money, these states, all this money to get recertified, retake classes I've already taken just to get back in the classroom. And by the time I can be full-time again, it's going to be too late. I can't do it in the next state. And we just decided that wasn't being a good steward of the money that God had given us. And money was tighter. This is over 12 years ago. This is like 14 years ago. And we didn't, it was comfortable to have me work because my husband wasn't making a lot of money, and it was more comfortable. We could do more things. We could eat out more. We could do all the fun things. And we prayed about it and really felt like it was time for me to stay home. Now you can imagine, by this time, most moms are working, but now I'm not even a mom. I'm just a wife. And we have made this decision that I will stay home and not work. And that is, other people might look at you and be like, hey, why aren't you working? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And it was a gift because my husband had changed jobs and was finally home. And I could be there and I could give us a steady schedule and I could make sure that we had healthy food to eat when he came home and all these things. And I was able to explore and find the cheaper grocery store, the cheaper this, the cheaper that, but still get high quality. And it was a gift because I learned how to do those things that I needed to know how to do when kids came on the scene. And I needed to do things around the house that I hadn't been responsible for before. And I needed to provide steadiness at home because even though my husband's job changed and he was home at night more, his schedule was up and down, and I was available to provide the steadiness and to provide this foundation. And that was such a gift because I learned how to do that before I had the extra pressure of children. And God just led us to that. So, okay, I didn't have children yet. I was at home. I was doing these things. Sarah is at home for 90 years. There's always a purpose. There's a reason why God has his timing and brings us into different seasons of our life and different timing, right? Sarah is 90 and still hasn't had a child. And now she's laughing going, God, that ship has sailed. All right. We all know what happens to women's bodies as we get older. If you're a woman watching this, we know, we've heard it, right? There comes a time men can have kids forever. Women cannot. Our bodies shut down at a certain time and say enough is enough, right? Like your body can't handle this. She is beyond that point, well beyond that point, right? So she's like, this isn't happening. And God is saying, I can do this. So we have a little intervention there where it talks about God dealing with Sodom and Gomorrah, right? But so we see all this stuff happening with Lot and his wife and his daughters. And now we're back with Abraham and Sarah. And so Abraham goes on the road again. He's wandering around and he ends up in the region of Negev, and he's close to this king Abimelech. And they're there, and God has already shown him, like, here's this covenant, here's this thing. He's protected him. When he went to get Lot, he was supernaturally, through the help of God, able to defeat these kings and bring Lot back. So, like, God has been with him. God has protected him. And God put a plague on the Egyptian Pharaoh and his household to get Sarah back, right? So, of all the things, Abraham should trust at this point that God is protecting him, God is guiding his steps, and God has said, I am providing you a son through Sarah, and I'm doing this. And he knows God has made this covenant with him. And yet, they're in this place, and he tells the king, this is my sister, and doesn't claim her as his wife. Playing the same old games, right? So he's not having the faith here to know God has said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this through you, and I'm going to do this through a son you don't have yet. And yet he's still not trusting God to protect him, to be available to make and create and be there with that son. So Abimelech has Sarah brought to him. This is a 90-year-old woman that kings still want. Think about that now. A 90-year-old woman that kings still want. She had to be stunning. Stunning. I mean, God has just supernaturally made this woman just amazing. Stunning, faithful. Yeah, she laughed. So still some things going on there. But she has stayed with this man. She has been faithful. She has wandered all over with him, far away from father and family, because he's like, God says do this. And she's like, all right. And she goes. So she has been faithful. But God came to Abimelech in a dream and said, this is this man's wife. Do not touch her. And he closes down all the wombs for the entire household. Like, nope, you're not to touch her. You're not. This is not for you. And so, and he's like, I'm going to you're going to die because you've taken this woman and she's not yours. You're going to die. And he's like, wait, God, I haven't touched her. Are you going to, destroy a nation? Because I didn't know. Like, he lied to me. I didn't know. I haven't touched her. Please don't destroy us because of something I didn't know. And Abimelech brings Abraham and says, what have you done? Why did you say she's your sister? And this is where we find out. He's like, yeah, well, we are actually. She is my sister. We share the same father, but a different mother. But I was worried because I thought you were going to kill me because of her. All right? And because he was like, I thought you had no fear of God. There's no fear of God in this place. And I follow God, but I thought since you didn't have any fear of God that you would kill me or whatever. And so Abimelech's like, And he gives him flocks. And he gives to Sarah 1,000 pieces of silver and says, this is proof. Like, you are redeemed in any way, but I did not touch you. And I am giving all this up because I know that I cannot have you, and I am paying you. And it's like, God has said, if Abraham prays for me, then things will be okay. So Abraham prays for him, and all the wombs in his household open back up, right? And so chapter 20, verse 17, then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves so that they could bear children. For the Lord had completely closed all the wombs in Abimelech's household on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So even if your husband has faith in God, loves God, but is not trusting God, God can protect you. He did. He overwhelmingly protected Sarah in this instance, and even had 1,000 pieces of silver as a verification of her honor offered. It's like, if you are being honorable and you are being faithful and you are following God and trusting him, even if in the moment, whatever moment, your husband isn't fully trusting God, God can protect you and him. So just hold on to that, okay? Hold on to that. First verse of chapter 21, the Lord came to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant at 90 and bore a son to Abraham in his old age at the appointed time God had told him. Okay? So, and they named him Isaac. And Abraham's 100 years old. And then Sarah says in verse 6, God has made me laugh, and everyone who hears will laugh with me. And I have borne a son in his old age. Okay, so look at this. Sarah is taking ownership of laughter. Laughter is not a bad thing. God loves laughter, and she is saying, I am laughing in my old age because God has provided. And they do. They name him Isaac, and it's kind of a double thing. Like, it's kind of making fun of them laughing and not believing God and his promise. But then they are laughing with joy because God did fulfill his promise, right? So this name Isaac is just beautiful because it identifies, I laughed. Abraham laughed and said, she's too old. Sarah laughed, said, I'm too old. He's too worn out. This isn't happening. And now they're laughing because it's like, oh, God did this. And God waited till she was 90 to open her womb. They've been married for an inordinately long time. But God's time has to be perfect. And God's time is sometimes waiting on us or our husbands to be ready, to fully trust him, to be fully sold out on walking this life with him. I mean, God had given this promise, this covenant to Abraham more than once and repeated the same thing. I'm going to make you the father of many nations. And then when Ishmael came, he's like, okay, let's clarify this. I am making you the father of many nations. And yeah, it's not Ishmael's fault. I'll give him many nations too. But my people, my covenant is coming through your wife. Your wife. And it's like, trust me to protect you and protect her. Right? And he had to wait for Abraham to be there because Abraham kept giving her away to kings because he was scared. And it had to get to the point where God was like, don't you trust me yet? Haven't you figured out I'm keeping my promise? I'm keeping you safe because it's through you I'm doing this. And it's like, I'm doing this through Sarah. I'm recognizing that not only do I have a covenant with you, but you have this covenant with her. You're married to her. That's how I'm fulfilling this beautiful thing. I am honoring this marriage. And I'm doing it through her, not the slave who you all have mistreated, not her. Sarah, your wife. And they end up, because of kind of Sarah's protection, overprotection probably of Isaac, and her like, no, this is a slave's child. He cannot share in the inheritance with my son, my legitimate son that God gave us through promise. And God has to reassure Abraham, I will take care of Ishmael. Go ahead and send him away. I am going to fulfill my promise through Isaac. It's okay. Please, Sarah, do this. Sarah's probably not in the right by saying do this. But God is saying, I am protecting Isaac as my person, my covenant to do all these other things to save the world through. Go ahead. Listen to Sarah. Send Ishmael away. I will take care of him. But you two are raising Isaac, and this is my promise, and you're going to honor that promise. It's just beautiful. And he, Sarah is honored, and Abraham, I think, finally comes to realize the value of Sarah. And it's not in protecting his rear end when he goes into enemy territory. That's not her purpose. It's not her purpose. Her purpose is to be his wife and to give him children of promise. And so when Sarah dies, he's been wandering. He's been following where God has led, but he keeps wandering through this. And now when Sarah dies, he buys land and a cave because he wants a place to bury his wife that God used. God used her in her long-time role as wife and then her short-time role as mother. And I think that's another thing to realize too. We will be wives. We are wives. That is our role as wives, even before we have kids. Maybe not. Maybe you did things a little differently, but honor the sanctity of that marriage, that you are a wife. And even after your kids leave home, yes, you're still their mom, but your primary job at that point is wife, because as they leave and get married, you need to honor their covenant relationship with their spouse. And you need to go back to making your prominent role that of the helpmeet, the support, the partnership, the side-by-side walking through with your spouse, honoring God. And Abraham buys a field for 400 pieces of silver, 400 shekels of silver, and buys this field to bury Sarah, so that he has a place that he can be buried with her and that they can honor her in her role as his wife. And I was curious. I tend to go down rabbit holes. I was like, how much is 400 shekels? If you just took the weight of the silver and how much weight that was and translated it to that weight being money, it would be about $5,000, which you're like, that's not a whole lot for this huge piece of land with a cave on it. It's not. However, the way they valued silver then and used it then in their money, there is a rabbi that also understands finance that figured this out and said he bought this land that in today's dollars, based on how silver was used then, it was about $694,000. So this was probably more than just a field. This was probably a pretty hefty piece of land with this cave that he wanted to have to settle down, to have a place to bury his wife, to honor her contribution to his life, and to have that there and to settle and to quit wandering. He now owns a piece of the land that God said he was going to give to him and his descendants. And he bought it as a place to have his wife and to settle down in his old age and have a place with Isaac and to bury her. So he honors her extremely. In the past, he's like giving her up to protect his own hide, but then reaping the rewards. Oh yeah, I'm getting wealth from this. He's getting money, he's getting flocks, he's getting herds, and then he wanders to the next place. And so he had to get to the place where he honored that relationship with his wife, and he trusted God. And, now we see in her death, he does honor that relationship with her. And he does see the value that she brought and how she was the covenant and the vehicle for that promise. And that's just beautiful. Such a beautiful picture of how God protected Sarah over and over and over again when her husband didn't, as he should have, and using her in this marriage. And then finally, once they're faithful enough to get it and to trust enough, he opens up her womb and gives them Isaac, even in their old age, because God can fulfill his promises even when to us it seems impossible. And he'll continue to honor us. And maybe, like Sarah, there can be honor even after your death. But we have to keep our eyes on the prize. We have to have faith, and we have to recognize when God is giving us a promise, he does not deviate. And we may not understand his timing, but he can do what seems impossible. So when you're getting anxious and you're thinking, God, this can't be done, like your timing, like my body's going to give out. I'm not going to be able to do this promise. Maybe you should use this person, or this is happening. And God, we only have so much time till the next orders come in, or we only have so much time for my parents to be around, or we only have so much time for, the deadline is this is happening, that is happening. Human deadlines don't matter to God. He can fulfill it when it seems impossible. He will ask you to step out in faith with him, but he will fulfill it. If he gives a promise, he will fulfill, even if to us it seems impossible. So hang on to that promise.